Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McGrath, senior editor at Forbes. We are entering day 4 of the Democratic National Convention, and joining us from Chicago is Skye Perryman. She's a frequent guest on Forbes Talks and Forbes Newsroom. She is the CEO of Democracy Forward, but she's joining us in her personal capacity to give us her observations from the DNC floor. Skye, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Maggie.
So I want to start by asking, we all see the TV segments, the speeches, the high production value, but take us behind the scenes. What's been going on the ground in Chicago over the last few days?
Well, there is an amazing energy here. I have to tell you, if you're seeing that on the television, that's real, and you're probably not seeing the full amount of it. There are people and communities here from all over the country. There are people that don't agree with each other on everything here, but they're all here to talk about our democracy and our freedom. So we're just seeing an amazing amount of energy with diverse communities all over the country here in Chicago.
So interesting that you say that not everyone agrees, because I think watching on TV, it looks like everyone's clapping at the same time, crying at the same time. Let's talk a little bit more about the different opinions you're hearing. And I want to start by asking, are you hearing from anyone who still wishes that President Biden were at the top of the Democratic ticket?
What we've seen here is just tremendous gratitude for the president. I think you saw on television the thank you, Joe signs. I mean, that's real. That's happening in real time. In speeches, people spontaneously, whenever they tout the administration's strong record, the crowds are spontaneously breaking into a thank you, Joe, a thank you, Joe cheer. And so I think you see tremendous gratitude and then just real energy about what Kamala Harris and her administration could represent for the American people. What Tim Walz, a new voice for many who haven't been following Minnesota politics, represents. And so that's really what we've seen. But what I mean by people that disagree on things is there are Republicans here, people that have voted Republican and been loyal to the Republican Party. There are independents here, and they're all in this moment really rallying around a protection of our freedom, a protection of our democracy, and of Vice President Harris's candidacy.
Speaking of independence, Oprah Winfrey spoke last night, and her message was literally for the independents. She said, I'm an independent and I'm reaching out to you. Can you talk about the reaction that you're hearing on the ground to her speech and anything that stood out to you?
I think people were incredibly energized by Oprah's speaking, but also her message. And I have seen and met and spoken with many people. They don't consider themselves political people. They've never been to a political convention before. And yet they're coming here because of a both concern and hope for our country in the future. I thought her remarks were deeply electrifying. They're in the arena. I think they were right on the mark. And you also saw yesterday, earlier in the program, former Trump administration officials taking the stage, talking about what they experienced and how even if they had been committed to certain principles that the Republican Party used to stand for, that in this moment it is time to get beyond those differences, to really be committed to protecting our democracy and moving forward.
When we talk about protecting democracy, obviously there are a lot of policies that go into that. What are the conversations you're having with people on the ground, and are those policies and conversations being reflected in the on-stage content?
I think that in large part there are, and then there are some issues that are getting more play than others. Certainly the concern and the crisis that we are in the country with respect to reproductive rights, which you and I have talked about a lot, is getting a lot of play here because of the deep effects that we've been seeing in communities throughout the country with this extreme Supreme Court rolling back our rights and, far right political actors passing Trump's abortion bans. And so that's definitely getting a lot of play. We are seeing conversation about the court itself, people really linking those dots. to people really linking the dots to the fact that elections matter and who represents us on our court. And so that's helpful. The Moms for a Fair Court campaign, which we've talked about before, has billboard here in Chicago that has gotten a lot of digital and other attention, and they'll be taking that to key states after debuting in Chicago. And so we're seeing a lot of conversations around the courts, and then of course the economy. I mean, people want to be able to thrive and know that they need a president and an administration that's going to protect workers' rights, not roll them back. You saw last night conversations even about border security and inclusive immigration policies that keep our border safe, with a sheriff from my home state of Texas making a debut on the stage.
You mentioned independents, undecideds, Republicans. Are you surprised by the number of independents, undecideds, and Republicans you've been seeing in Chicago?
What I'll just say is that we know in our work, and Maggie, you and I have talked about this, that the vast majority of people in this country agree on a lot of things. Even in a country where there are efforts to deeply polarize people, and there's misinformation that tries to pull people apart, the vast majority of people don't want the government in their bedroom. They want to be able to make a good wage at a good job. They want to be able to raise their kids in safe schools. They want to be able to decide whether to have kids or not, or what the timing of that is, or how they have kids. And so I think that it has been affirming to me to see this. Because it affirms what we get to see at Democracy Forward in our work every day, which is that there is just such a diversity of people that do support this march to progress in our democracy.
Last night, we also heard from the parents of Hirsch Goldberg. He is one of the Israeli-American hostages in Gaza, and the entire crowd started chanting, "Bring them home, bring them home." Were you there for that moment? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know the war in Gaza has been one of those issues where across the country, there are a lot of different opinions and people are pretty staunchly divided.
Yes, I have to tell you, I was entering the arena as the parents were taking the stage, and so many people paused as they were on stage to seek to I think be very respectful as folks were trying to find their way in and get through security. We certainly have seen, and I think you've seen from the stage, and I think this is very healthy. We've seen leaders that have differing views on the situation in Gaza, but then you've seen this clear call that Vice President Harris has made for a ceasefire, and that getting a lot of attention. So it is certainly something, the pain that people are experiencing is certainly something that I think is on a lot of people's minds here. And I think you've seen people come together, but also highlight these issues that are deeply prevalent in this time.
Now, in your capacity as CEO of Democracy Forward, I was doing some Googling, and it looks like there was a panel you guys had on demanding justice. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and what are the issues you got to in that conversation?
Yes, well, we've had so many wonderful events here, and some of our focus has really been partnering with one of our partner organizations, Demand Justice, where I'm a senior advisor, to highlight the issues in our courts and to make sure that people have information about what the American people can do. The courts are not an untouchable institution. Our Constitution does provide tools that we can use to make sure that our courts are representing all of us to reject extremism. You and I talked recently about the president's proposals on that, which we believe are very strong. And so we've been doing a lot of work to educate people here, policymakers, influencers, leaders, as well as ordinary Americans about those tools. We've also had some panels on some of the other issues you and I have talked about before, Maggie. We did a panel with the executive director of the National Education Association and other leaders around the fight for good schools and fighting censorship in our society, which is one of these extreme agendas. And we're doing a lot of work to educate people on the harms of Project 2025. So we've been very busy on the ground, and then you have these late nights in the arena where we're able to to be here in our personal capacities to see American history unfolding.
It's been going very late. As someone who's been staying up to watch the coverage, I'm on extra coffee this
You
week.
are very committed to get through all of those speeches. I get texts from people saying, "I love you, but I'm going to check the highlights in the morning because it's been going late." Yes.
A news junkie. I can't help it. It's just in my blood. Now, tonight is, of course, the last night of the convention, and we will be hearing from the Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris. What do you want to hear from her remarks tonight? Are there policies you're listening for, messages you're listening for? What do you expect and hope to see?
Well, I think, look, this we've seen and heard from her on the trail, very strong on a lot of the issues we care about, that we know the vast majority of people care about: protecting our democracy, making sure our government works for us, protecting reproductive freedom, seeking to undo lots of the harmful policies that we're seeing that are hurting people, whether those are abortion bans or attacks on education. So I think we'll hear a lot of that, and I'm excited to hear what she wants to highlight tonight around the policy issues. But I also think that tonight, what I'm hoping is that it's a reflection of what we're seeing here on the ground in Chicago, which is, kind of where we started this conversation, which is people from all different parts of the country, very diverse views at times, maybe on certain issues, coming together to say that we are, as a country, going to move forward, not backward, and that our freedom is too precious to let it continue to be under attack by extremism. So that's what I'm excited to hear how she will put it, but that's what I'm hoping to see tonight.
And what are you hoping to see next week and the following week and over the next? I think we've had one wake up in Wes Moore's words, so 75 days and one wake up. What do you want to see in that time? What do you think we'll see
Well,
as a
I
result of the
think
DNC?
I think what the Obamas warned of, and what we know because of the political cycles, is that there will be some, there's a lot of great momentum, but that doesn't mean that this is going to be a time that we can take anything for granted. And so I'm hoping what we see are people that care about our country and our future energized, doing what they can do to make their voices heard, making sure people can vote, getting folks a voting plan, encouraging communities to step up, and then really this connecting the dots with ordinary Americans around how the issues they care about, which we know what those are. It's safe schools, it's reproductive health care, it's a good job, it's national security, right? How we can connect those issues to this moment, and to really make sure that people are connecting the dots.
Skye Perryman, CEO of Democracy Forward, speaking to us in a personal capacity from Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us. I know the convention schedule is terribly busy, but we so appreciate your time as always.
Yes, thank you for having me on, and this was fun to do, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon.